Defeat Putin. For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power.
Yes, we came, we saw, he died.
We both agree that Assad needs to go.
Fala, meu camarada, beleza? Não tô te ouvindo.
É porque sim, agora está.
Caos. Deixa eu começar aqui a gravar e a streamar no Steam. Então, hoje a gente vai conversar com o nosso convidado que já está começando a se tornar habituê aqui do canal. Né? Vamos falar de... maluco, da porra toda, tudo que está acontecendo pelo mundo, e vamos tentar entender um pouco do que está acontecendo por aí. Ele que é ex-analista da CIA e tem o blog onde ele escreve constantemente, que é o Sonar 21. Então, without further ado, Mr. Larry Johnson. And good morning, and as usual... Yeah, good afternoon. As usual, you're not on the screen. Chaos.
That's
also
it.
Chaos. Now you are here, yes.
There I am. Okay.
How are you doing, Mr. Johnson?
I am well. I always enjoy the chance to chat with you, Marcelo.
Thank you very much, sir. And today you have the chance also to chat with Davison, because so far, the first time he was busy, and the second time we were a lot of people with the commander Farinazo.
Right.
So, Larry, as we discussed previous, I'll start calling you Larry. I think it's more easy for us.
Yeah. This is not a formal setting.
Yeah. So, welcome back. You are starting to get to become a habitué on the channel, and it's very, very good for us. We always enjoy having your presence here. So for everybody at home, you can find Larry, everything, the links in the description. And the main part is on his sonar21.com site, where you can read all his news and his analysis in firsthand. So what we were thinking about this video today is that we are seeing a lot of things happening and a lot of things not happening. And that's very interesting. We have this kind of conflicts going on everywhere. And at the same time, we see a lot of retractions and rearranging, and that's funny. That's very interesting. So we would like to maybe start with Ukraine. That sure. We have these pinprick attacks, like the markets the other day, and Belgorod, and this gossip now about the Zaluzhny and Budanov exchange of position, and Zaluzhny getting fired. How do you see all these going on in Ukraine now? I mean, it's kind of clear that things are not going very well.
They ought to turn it into a telenovela.
Indeed.
That's what it's becoming. You've got the drama between Zaluzhny and Zelensky and Budanov. You have the people being drug off the street, compelled to, quote, join the armed forces. There's a video, I just saw a video this morning of some guy sitting on a bus, and these so-called recruiters stormed the bus. They grab him, dragging him off. It doesn't exactly paint the picture of Ukrainians lining up to defend the motherland. Oh boy, we're, Slava Ukraina. We're gonna run out there and put on our uniform. Nope, it's just the opposite. They're losing, and they're losing badly, and their prospects. They have no way to turn this around. It is they are up against an impossible situation. Apart from the fact that they're outnumbered, now the population of Ukraine, I believe, is around 24 million in country, and Russia's at 140 million. So, Russia's got 7 times the population. Russia's industry is secure from any attacks from Ukraine or the West, for that matter. Russia's manpower within the army is headed towards 1.3 million, which will be almost 3 times the size of what the U.S. Army is right now. Mm-hmm. So in Ukraine, by contrast, they just, I think it was the Wall Street Journal or Bloomberg issued a report 2 days ago. Average age of their soldiers, 43. Now, people who are math challenged may not understand that, but if your average age is 43, you got a lot of people that are over the age of 50 and 60.
Yes.
Which, there may be a few who are physically fit, but most people in that age range are not in the physical condition you need to be able to carry out military operations. So this is, they are facing setbacks on the battlefield. Ukraine is. Avdiivka, which has been a focal point of a lot of fighting. Russians made some significant breakthroughs there yesterday and are advancing in ways that some had predicted that battle would go on for another 6 months. It looks now like that it's going to turn much more rapidly. So I think the real interesting sign I saw is some people have focused on the fact that NATO is going to be conducting a major military exercise in the next week or two. Well, that's meaningless because that exercise, the planning for that started 2 years ago. So this wasn't something ginned up because of the war. This has been underway. I was involved with scripting those kinds of exercises over a 23-year period. So you start with an initial planning conference, then you have a mid-planning conference, then you have a final planning conference, and then the exercise itself is scripted, and then you execute it. The really interesting thing is Russia was scheduled to have a major exercise as well. It's canceled that exercise. That tells me that the forces that normally would have been participating in the exercise are going to be busy doing other things. I think that's an indicator that they're prepping for some offensive action beyond what they're already doing.
Okay, that I didn't know about at all. Go ahead, Davidson, please.
Okay. It looked like more or less the Russians got what they want, set this defense, let Ukraine deplete their forces in their defense line, and now they are organizing the offensive that maybe finish it off.
Yeah, it's a little bit like a boxing match. If you saw, a boxer can get up against the ropes, cover up, and the other boxer will just punch and punch and punch till he punches himself out. Muhammad Ali doing rope-a-dope, and then once the other boxer is now tired and can barely lift his arms, then you go in and you pound him, and that's what's taking place. Russia is ultimately, I believe, is going to take Odessa. It's going to take all territory up to the Dnieper. And Ukraine is, it's going to be a real question whether Ukraine can continue to exist as an actual country or state. Because it will be...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I say it will have its entire economic base eliminated. And
because it's already eliminated.
If the Russians got Odessa, then they have no seashore anymore.
So their access and candidly, their access to the sea right now is very, very limited. I mean, they claim that moving, but I've seen, we got some of these live maritime charts that show ship activity, and there's hardly any ship activity coming out of there simply because it's considered a combat zone.
Yeah.
So the ship sent to the Black Sea to escort the Ukrainian vessels were just a show off.
Yeah, I wouldn't look. They're saying they're going to send a British minesweeper. You saw what those clowns did in Bahrain the other day. They ran into each other. God,
They forgot to install the rear camera on the ship.
Oh yeah. Where are the brakes on this thing? You know, looking around. ¿Dónde están los frenos? You know. Oh God. It's just
Come.
you know, you can't. The Brits. You talk about a country that is in complete denial, denial of reality, denial of their capability. They think they're powerful, and yet, just 3 weeks ago, they're advertising on LinkedIn for an admiral to run their submarine fleet. I mean, who in the name of God goes to LinkedIn to advertise for the commander of your nuclear delivery system? It's insane. Because the way the military is supposed to work is you've got all these junior officers who are being trained and equipped to succeed their bosses. And so you rise through the ranks. What the Brits were admitting was they didn't have anybody who was in the chain of command that they thought was worth a damn. They couldn't be trusted to, maybe they were the ones who were running the other ship, the ships together there in Bahrain. It's just, they've had to decommission a couple of ships. Their one aircraft carrier, they tried to put it to sea, and it broke going out of port. Oh, good Lord. And so now they want to go into the Black Sea. Good luck with that, guys. I suspect they'll blow themselves up.
Yeah,
we should tell them to call Davison for repairing the engines.
at least the propulsion system.
Yeah, I'm sure it would work at least.
I am damn good at it, huh?
Exactly. Well, that's and I've been seeing also the reports that the British Army, they have like 40 tanks left, usable, of course, and as you said, the what's it called, the plane ship, the
aircraft carrier?
The aircraft carrier, sorry.
Aircraft carrier, yes.
It had this problem, and plus they didn't even have the people to put it on to work properly, the amount of personnel to make it work properly, to make it effective.
The crew is not complete, right?
The crew's
well,
not
in fact, that one aircraft carrier that broke, it's been in port now for over a year and a half. They're cannibalizing it. And what I mean by that is they're taking parts off of it to put on the other aircraft carrier that is also under repair.
Jesus.
And the entire British Army is like 70,000 guys. That wouldn't even fill, Wembley Stadium. That'd be like a third of Wembley Stadium, maybe. It's just, they're out of touch. They think that they're going to go fight Russia. This reminds me of what happened with my nephew several years ago. So I had a nephew. He was like 17 years old, 18 years old at the time. Nice kid, but skinny. Had never played American football in high school or middle school. Never. He may have played around in the backyard. He weighed, let's say, maybe 65 kilos. So, not a big guy. Mm-hmm. And I came home one day, and he was saying, and he was serious. He says, next year things are going to be different for me. I said, well, how's that? Well, I'm going I'm trying out for the Kansas City Chiefs football team, and I'm going to be on the team. I'm going to be a defensive back. Now, I'm looking at him, and he was dead ass serious. He really sincerely believed what he was saying, but it wasn't going to happen. I mean, he had zero experience at it. He was not fast. He was not strong, and yet. It was that kind. That's Great Britain. That is Great Britain right now. Okay, like my crazy nephew. They are so out of touch with reality, and don't even have the good grace to step back and recognize what's going on with Russia from both an industrial capability as well as a military capability. It's just crazy.
Exactly. You mentioned something very interesting there about Ukraine as well. That is the average age of the soldiers, about 43. And also yesterday there was, and I saw that with Alex Christoforos episode of yesterday. There was a piece on the time of, I don't remember the name of the newspaper now, the time of some British newspaper, that the demography of the country is also facing a complete crisis.
Yeah,
like the expectancy, the life expectancy for the men now is about 53 years old, while for the women it's about 70. And I always remember the first show that we had with you, sir, that I mentioned the thing of Paraguay. And that was one of the first things that I thought back there 2 years ago, that, this is what's going to happen. And here we go, it's happening.
Yeah, it happened with all armies that face this situation. Germany in World War I was the same, right? The average age of the soldiers jumped crazily because the young people were almost all dead or incapable.
Yeah, well, we live in a day and age of fantasy and magical thinking, so where people fail a lot of times to grasp reality. So the whole transgender movement is just, it's based on the suspending belief in nature and science. It requires you to indulge that nonsense, but it doesn't change the fact that if you're going to recruit a new soldier, it takes about 18 or 19 years, because first the kid has to be born, and then has to grow up, and then has to be inducted. That's sort of the normal projection. When you're killing off a million, or let's say right now you're looking at probably 1.2, 1.3 million killed and wounded in Ukraine. That's an enormous number. And, the United States, we get all weepy over the Vietnam Wall, memorial. People go up there and, very emotional. That's 58,000, okay? That's about the toll that what Ukraine's losing in 2-3 months.
Yeah.
So it's just, we put it in perspective. And people are pretending that this is, that Ukraine can somehow sustain this. How?
Yeah,
it's impossible.
Yeah, if we think that Germany lost 3.5 million people in World War II, they are half the way. Ukraine is already half the way.
Yeah, well, actually, I thought the German soldier military losses were closer to like 5 million, but 3 million, 5 million, it's a lot. This. Let's assume that if Ukraine actually had bodies that they could recruit, well, training takes time. The average basic training for any military is about 3 months, and that means at the end of that period, how to make your bunk, how to put on your uniform, how to march, and how to follow orders, and you may know how to shoot a rifle. That's about it. You're not skilled with land navigation. You're not skilled in communications techniques. You're not skilled with maneuver with other forces and coordinating movements. You're not. You certainly don't know how to take a defended objective. There are a whole host of things that have to be learned. How to fire accurately artillery or mortars. Drive tanks. So it builds up. It takes time, and Ukraine keeps trying to circumvent that. They keep, they slap a uniform on a guy, put a gun in his head, and say, "Get out there, killer!" And
start killing Russians. Kill Russians.
More often than not, they're going to probably kill themselves just through ignorance of not knowing how to handle a firearm.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's. People think life is a video game, and it's just.
Yeah, it is. That's a very good analogy. That, with video games, you can get the cheat codes, and
restart or whenever you want.
Yeah, do a variety of things to jump ahead and win.
You need to take 3 assault rifle shots to die.
Yeah.
And then someone comes with a med kit and cure you.
Exactly. There was also something interesting this week in Ukraine. That was the French mercenaries that were took down. The interesting thing is that I've been seeing a little bit of hysteria on Twitter, for example, about the NATO lieutenant colonel from Italy that seems that have passed away at home by a cancer or something like that, and. I've been in contact with a journalist, an Italian journalist that is living in Donbass right now, and he just, no. The guy, I talked to the family. The guy died at home. It was okay, but the interesting part is that this is nothing new about the NATO army people on the ground in Ukraine. But it was interesting that the Macron reaction and the defense minister reaction was completely hysterical about this situation. How did you see this reaction and what happened?
Yeah, well, the whole mercenary picture is changing. So when the special military operation kicked off in February 2022, there were a lot of, I'll call them soldiers of fortune, Game Boys, guys that, were busy playing Doom or something. Said, I'm going to go do it for real. Some people sort of frustrated in their prior military career, or they missed the adrenaline rush. So they went over. Mm-hmm. And during the ensuing sort of 16, 18 months, the number of mercenaries started dropping off. So because I've been monitoring Russian Ministry of Defense channels and with their reports on this. Mm-hmm. And it dropped off for a variety of reasons. One, they were getting killed or wounded. Two, Ukraine wasn't really set up to deal very well with these foreigners. They didn't quite know what to do with them. And they were not always under decent command, or the general poor quality of Ukrainian command alienated some of them. So the point was, if you track numbers from, say, April of 2022 to July, August of 2023, the numbers they're going down. They're dropping off. Now we got something different. So when you got this large of a concentration of French soldiers, and that's what they are, they're soldiers. Mm-hmm. These are not mercenaries. These are actually French military personnel who were, let's call it, sheep dipped. They were given resigned from the service, given the status of quote being civilians, but they're still military. And the reason they're there is because they have special skills in operating weapon systems that Ukraine can't operate, such as the artillery platforms, the Caesar, or tanks, or air defense systems. So that, they've stepped that up. Well, people keep forgetting that the Russians have active intelligence operatives on the ground throughout Ukraine, reporting back what's going on. And so once they identified this big fat target of all these French soldiers hanging out, pretending not to be French soldiers, we'll call them, they were transgender Ukrainians, okay? they identified as Ukrainian.
Okay.
You know, they got hit and killed. You know, that's welcome to war. It's such a contrast with what Ukraine is doing, as you mentioned earlier, Marcelo, that Ukrainians had hit that marketplace in Donetsk with cluster munitions, you know, and there's no military purpose or target in that, other than the Ukrainians hold this foolish belief that if they kill enough civilians, that it will anger the civilians to the point that they'll get rid of Vladimir Putin. And not understanding that, you know, the anger is going to be directed at them, not at Putin.
Yeah, that should be a very easy conclusion after at least 8 years of this madness in Ukraine. I mean, I'm out of Ukraine now. Do you have anything else, Davidson, you want to talk about Ukraine?
No, that's okay.
Okay, so we have planned to go to Venezuela first, but due to the time, let's jump to Israel, because Venezuela is just small talks. So Netanyahu has been quite verbose on his declarations nowadays about the impossibility of the two-state solution, the verbal attacks on Hezbollah, and that he's going to go also north. And at the same time, we've seen some videos and images of Israel military going back from the front line in Gaza. And also today or yesterday, there was some news of a big Israel force, IDF, killing. Like 21 soldiers were killed. It was the biggest. How do you see what's going on over there?
Yeah, well,
at this point,
the reason you use military force is to defeat a threat. Okay, that's the whole concept behind it. That you can give people enough firearms and ammunition and explosives and other equipment that they can overwhelm and suppress another group or a group of individuals. Well, there's no way Israel's going to be able to do that to Hamas. Israel doesn't have a large enough force. It does not have a sufficiently trained force. And Hamas is fighting from well-entrenched defensive positions. Israel might ultimately be able to defeat them, but at a terrible cost to Israel, a cost I don't think Israel's willing to pay. And you're going to see that the reverberations from that incident you described yesterday, where apparently there were like 19, 20 Israelis that went into this one building. Mm-hmm. And they didn't realize it had been pre-wired by Hamas with explosives. And Hamas cranked it off, and the building collapsed and killed all the Israelis inside. There was a tank outside that tried to then respond, and that tank also got hit with an RPG, killed the two crew members. So Israel, the last I saw, was like 24 soldiers killed in one day. They haven't lost that many since October 7th in a one-day attack. And so in the midst of this then, what does Israel do? They're talking about they're expanding the war into the West Bank. They're stepping up attacks against Palestinian civilians there, and they're going to fight back. And they keep talking. You know, they get some of the really delusional guys in the cabinet keep talking about starting a war with Hezbollah up north. I mean, they're already trading rockets, missiles, mortars, and Israel's using fixed-wing aircraft to bomb targets inside Lebanon. But Hezbollah just waiting for Israel to come. Israel will get crushed. Israel will lose that, and that could then open the way for the actual destruction of the Jewish state. I mean, it's that serious, and then this is how crazy these people are. So it is Netanyahu's political position is, I think, becoming more tenuous with each passing day. The lack of success in the war, the failure to secure the release of the hostages, and the blame that accompanies the failure to prevent what happened on October 7th. Mm-hmm. So you put all that together, and Netanyahu does not have a bright political future, is the bottom line.
Let me ask you something, sir. They say the creation of a Palestinian state is a menace, a threat to the Israeli state. More and more we see the fight against this idea is the real menace, the real threat to the Israeli state as it is. There is any merit in what they defend, in what they say about this, about being against the creation of the Palestinian state because of this security issues?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is one of those issues that can't be solved intellectually. You know, our nature as human beings is we're confronted with a problem, we've got to figure out a way to try to solve it. This one is unsolvable. Somebody's going to die in order to bring a solution, because you can't create a quote a Palestinian state except it's divided. It's in two different locations. It'll be on Gaza, it'll be on the West Bank. And if they do actually create a genuine state in the West Bank, you've got all these illegal Israeli settlers, over 700,000, almost 1 million, that are occupying that territory. And they're just, attacking, killing Palestinians at will. It's like they're treating them like vermin, subhuman. So, the Palestinians are going to press for their rights, and the Israelis are going to insist that they have no rights. And this is the only thing I think it's going to solve this is Israel's going to have to suffer a military defeat. Only with a military defeat are they going to be in a position where they will genuinely have to negotiate and back off. But it's a very precarious situation right now and perilous because really the only support Israel has is the United States. And if the United States was not continuing to flow money and weapons into Israel, Israel's ability to sustain this campaign would be eliminated. They'd have to fold up their tent and go home.
Yeah. At the same time, isn't it too dangerous to get Israel to a military defeat? Because nobody knows for sure, but they have basically said recently that they have nukes.
Yeah, well, they've got nukes. Where are they going to use them? The nuclear weapon is not a magic solution. It doesn't. It is not going to set the world on fire. It's going to cause significant damage and create some radioactive contamination in one area. Even 2 or 3 such weapons going off, it'd be terrible for the people right there, and in some of the surrounding areas. But it doesn't fix the problem. Yeah. We look back on America's use of the atomic bombs in World War II and Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And we've always discussed the problem there as it was either we nuke them in order to bring an end to this war, or we were going to have to invade and risk the loss of millions of soldiers. Those were the two stark choices. I would argue there was actually a third choice in there. It would have required patience and a shift in operations, but the United States would have been in a position to impose a fairly significant blockade on Japan, because they're one big group of islands. It would be easier to impose a blockade and work on negotiating an end instead of killing all the civilians that we ended up killing. That's one of the problems with, as you go back and look at sort of the history of Western military operations over the last 100 years. It's not just the United States; it's also Japan. But the United States and Britain, killed far more civilians using airstrikes than the Germans did. Now, you make the case the Germans killed millions on the ground with, through the Holocaust, through the concentration camps, and that's very true. But actually, probably the greatest civilian killing machine during World War II was the Japanese, because, they killed upwards of 25 million Chinese at least.
Using disease.
The numbers are staggering in terms of what the Japanese did to the Chinese.
Yes.
The fact that the Chinese have not insisted upon leveling Japan to the ground is payment for that, and retribution is sort of surprising.
Oh yeah.
But so this is we're caught in trying to use military force to solve issues that can't be solved through military force. And that's so going back to creating a two-state solution. That's one of those things that's brought up at the UN. But how does it actually work practically? In practice, that's the challenge. And then, Israel said, "Okay, yeah, we'll create a Palestinian state, but basically they want to control it." It's sort of like a father with said, "Okay, yeah, I'm gonna let my 16-year-old kid drive, except I'm gonna control the car keys, and every time you take the car out, I'm gonna be sitting in the front seat." Well, and that's okay when you start driving at 16, but if you're like 28 years old and your dad's still doing that to you, you go, "Okay, wait a second, this has got to stop."
Oh yeah.
We've been so far on this.
Yeah. That's what, Israel keeps wanting to stay in the car and determine where it goes and how it's driven.
Yeah, exactly. This is actually very interesting because I myself, I'm not a super intelligent person in this kind of diplomatic matters. I'm not very knowledgeable, but I don't see the two-state solution as a solution. I mean, it could be a temporary solution until if it worked, and we see that it didn't. But if it worked during time, it could be a temporary solution, as you said, till dad get out of the car and let the young one, which was not supposed to be the elderly one actually. To be able to adapt to the reality there, and then maybe reunifying in a one country, a middle solution for the one state solution. And I see people say, "Oh, that's that's very complicated because you have the religious aspects and the social aspects and blah 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 and blah blah blah." But actually, if you see, I always give the example of Brazil. Brazil is a multi-ethnical, multicultural, multicolor, multi-religious state, and we live in a very average peace, I would say. It's not I would say that we live in peace. I mean, you have some small points of friction, but everybody lives in peace over there, to a degree, of course.
Yeah, we have violence. But
Yeah,
we don't
that's
have
exactly.
this. We don't have what happened in Middle East. We don't have it at all.
Yeah, we don't have religious clashes. We don't have cultural clashes to a degree of a real violence.
Civil war.
A civil war, exactly. I mean, we had some in the past, and it's been 100 years that we don't have anything big going on in Brazil at that matter. And well, it's just I don't see it working. I have to agree with Ray. I don't see it working as a two-state solution. It could be, for example, in Switzerland, you have a mixed government. You have like 7 presidents. It's I mean, they could work out.
They have a very crazy, very strange government way in Lebanon, right? Lebanon is a mix of cultures, and they have this very, very unorthodox government there. It works more or less with problems and all stuff, but it works. So solutions, I think people will be able to
solutions.
People will be able to find a solution if they really want to find a solution, right?
Yeah. I mean, you got to bring the politics back into it. There has to be, war in and of itself, violence in and of itself, unless tied into a political solution, is pointless. So look, like the classic vision is what happened at the end of World War II, with the surrender of Germany, and then the West helping Germany rebuild and reconstitute. The same with Japan. Now, in the course of that, the West turned away from its former ally, the Soviet Union, and then began mounting a campaign to try to destroy the Soviet Union. So it's almost like our systems are built with an expectation of conflict. As long as we got an enemy, we can then justify doing a variety of things in violation of civil rights and taking taxpayer dollars to fund defense industries that end up profiting a small group of capitalists in around the world. I don't mean to sound like Karl Marx here, but it is.
Feel free. I mean, we are already being called communists anyway. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it's really I've watched it long enough that 30 years ago the U.S. defense budget was like $200 billion. Now it's closing in on $1 trillion. It's grown like almost 5 times, well over 4 times what it was.
Yeah.
And what has it brought? Greater peace? No. It's brought more conflict, more war, more death, more destruction. And
that's right.
It'd be one thing if we were turning the world into a Coke commercial. You remember the old Coke? I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. Everybody's singing and swaying. Yeah, that'd be great if that's what our military budget was bringing us, but that's not what we're getting.
Exactly.
That's not what we're getting. Instead, we're out trying to beat the hell out of the Houthis.
Great hook to the point that I wanted to talk about it to kind of wrap up all these things. I think the Houthis comes to a very good connection to what it seems to me, and that's the big question of this live stream today. I just recently, Biden was asked by a TV reporter that if the attacks have been effective on the Houthis, and he said, "No, it hasn't worked, but we'll continue."
Well,
so
definition of insanity.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Exactly.
Well, when you talk about Biden, it's very well placed.
Yeah, that's more geriatric issues.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
No. Look, the Houthis actually are sort of. History will probably view them as a heroic little country. This is the story of David versus Goliath, because the Houthis are standing up for the people of Palestine. they're actually trying to do something to compel us into that relentless attack of the Palestinian civilians. It'd be one thing if Israel was actually attacking military targets, but they're not. They are indiscriminately killing civilians, attacking hospitals, schools, churches, mosques, without regard to whether it's children or actual armed fighters. So the only country, a lot of countries talk big, Erdogan, Turkey, this is like Hitler. Okay, good. Yosep, you talk a good talk, but you're not doing anything. Mm-hmm. Here are the Houthis, one of the poorest countries in the world, not one of the largest, but they've shut down the Red Sea. And the guy says, well, we'll show you. We're going to sell our aircraft carrier in there. And we did, and we sent in our destroyers. And the Houthis start shooting missiles off at them. And so it gets to the point that the United States realizes, they're shooting $50,000 drones at us, and we're trying to shoot them down with $2 million missiles.
Missiles, yes.
The math on that doesn't actually work. And plus, we don't have a factory standing up back in, Sheboygan, Wisconsin, where they're cranking this out. We don't have the industrial capability anymore to produce lots of these missiles and rockets.
Exactly.
And what happens with those destroyers? They have what's called a vertical launch system. So it's like a bunch of tubes in the middle of the deck of the bow of the ship. And once they fire, they're out. It's empty. So it's like shooting a shotgun. You shoot it, and the shell, the ammunition goes flying. The bullets go flying down range, or the shot. Well, then you got to reload. Well, how do you reload these ships? Well, years ago, 30, 40 years ago, there used to be what we call ship tenders that could pull up alongside a destroyer, and they could actually handle the reload. Except this vertical launch system, it's great, it's really accurate, really expensive, and god awful to try to reload. You actually have to sell it back to a port. It has to be in calm water, and then you have to have cranes to hoist and put stuff in there. Well, that's a stupid weapon system, because it doesn't mean it means you cannot sustain a combat operation. So now when the destroyers pull out, they have to go to, say, Bahrain to get refitted. The aircraft carrier has to follow along behind because it can't stay out there because it doesn't have any air defense.
No escort.
And so, that's why the United States and the United Kingdom have opted for bombing with, dropping iron bombs and so-called smart bombs. But they're going after mobile missile platforms. And that's the key word. There's mobile. They're moving around. They don't stay in one place. And just when the United States, we got it located, it's at location XYZ, and they, call in the airstrike, and the plane's got to fly, take some time. By the time it gets there, it may have moved.
It's gone. Yeah.
Gone.
Very cheap, very, very light, very, very small. Everything is very easy to carry around. And
yeah, it's just, I used the example from the movie, the Thomas Crown Affair, that had Pierce Brosnan and Rene Rousseau. And at the end of the movie, when Pierce Brosnan, the character he plays, Thomas Crown, goes to the museum wearing this bowler hat, and he's got a long wool coat on, and he's carrying a briefcase. And they think, we're going to follow him. The cops are watching. Well, next thing they know, there are 100 guys dressed exactly like Pierce Brosnan walking around, and they can't figure out which is which. That's what the United States and the United Kingdom are doing, trying to figure out which missile is which is the real, which is the fake. And meanwhile, the Houthis are not running out. And we can't, the only way to stop this would be to kill them all. But the United States doesn't have the ability to do that. And so everybody's sort of, the Chinese and the Iranians, they're going to school on this. They're watching the Houthis. And, until I saw this, I really had not fully appreciated that if the Chinese decide to invade Taiwan, and I don't think they will, but let's just say they do, and the U.S. military response is we're going to send a couple of carrier task force or carrier strike groups to counter the Chinese, all the Chinese have to do is saturate them, fire 1,000 drones a day. The Chinese can easily do that. 1,000 drones, have them 1,000 drones a day. You quickly overwhelm
directly.
Yeah. And you quickly overwhelm the missile defense system of those ships, that they'll have to withdraw or they'll die. So it's like, this is, we didn't realize the United States hadn't really thought this through. They haven't. Because we got, look, Brazil's sort of famous for all of its, the Gracies and mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu. But it's like if you spent your entire mixed martial arts career, you're an adult and you've been beating up on children. I kicked that 12-year-old's ass. Yeah. And then you actually go up against some real competition that's your size, your age. Whole different ball game. And the United States has constructed its military capabilities with as if it's fighting children. We've been fighting third world countries, what Donald Trump called shitholes, that didn't have their own Air Force, didn't have air defense, didn't have really up-to-date modern artillery and armor. And we've drawn lessons from that. Yeah, boy, we've got what it takes. And yet, we couldn't even suppress the fighting in Afghanistan. We finally had to pull out of there.
Yeah, it was shameful. One thing that, for example, Andrei Martyanov always mentioned about Iraq army, and I see that a lot on social media. People defending, Iraq army was the second biggest army. Yeah, but what did they had at the time? Mostly nothing. And what they had, they didn't know how to operate properly. And I mean, Martyanov makes a much better.
Yeah, but they were also bought off. I mean, the CIA had a pretty big program of going out and approaching these officers and saying, hey, how would you like a $3 million retirement fund? If you just tell your troops to back off and not fight, we'll give you $3 million and a house in Miami or Key Biscayne or something, Okay. And a lot of them took the deal. Yeah. So, it's like it really, you think that this is odd, that this is something out of character. But back when I was in the counterterrorism office at State, so we would do an exercise where we would simulate a terrorist attack taking place in some location. And then we had this interagency team. It was called FEST, Foreign Emergency Support Team, how that would be activated and would deploy. That team consisted of elements of the CIA, FBI, State Department communicators, and representatives from the Special Operations Command. So we were doing this exercise up at Otis Air Force Base, which is where the John F. Kennedy, when he was president, used to hang out in the summers. And the terrorist target was this house. And around this house was a fence and some trees. Well, the CIA went up a week before to the base commander, and because the CIA's job in these incidents, in these situations, was to deploy a team that it was called the Incident Response Team. Deploy this team that would spy on, collect intelligence about what was going on in the house. So what did the CIA want to do? They went to the base commander and said, could you take down that fence and cut down these trees? So they wanted to make it easy for themselves. They didn't want to have to act like it was real world, where if in real world you had a fence and trees, what are you going to do? No, take the fence down, cut down the trees. and so that mindset is actually still sort of it's pervasive throughout the U.S. government with DOD. We don't think about actually having to fight a foe that has actual electronic warfare capability, has a better air defense system than us, as does Russia. More competent, more capable aircraft, and they have hypersonic missiles, and we don't. Yeah. It's a new ball game. No, let's delude ourselves. Let's convince ourselves that we got this great spy capability. As long as we can get the fence down and the trees cut down, we're good.
Okay, Larry, we're approaching 1 hour. Would you have time for 2 quick questions so we could wrap this video perfectly?
Yeah.
So, when I said that the Houthis situation is a perfect hook for the end of it, is that now we see the United States fully blaming Iran about the Houthis. Yeah. I mean, fully blamed. I mean, they are. I mean, bureaucratically, yeah, we know, but officially, it's still kind of a proxy. So you should not directly blame. And what I'm seeing, what I'm looking at, it looks a lot like a narrative construction for Iran. So how do you see this?
You're right. It's the United States is trying to create a justification for attacking Iran. The problem is, again, it goes back. It's that house that's got the fence and the trees. What the United States does. The average politician and the average guy in the Department of Defense don't sit back and appreciate the fact that Iran has a very capable air defense system, number one. That the physical territory of Iran is 4 times the size of Iraq. And we had a tough time doing anything managing Iraq, for God's sake. We don't have, Iran has, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, drones. They downed one of the Predators. I think it was the MQ-9, 4 or 5 years ago, and it was a CIA drone, downed it, took it, copied it, and now they're producing drones based upon what the CIA provided. So they've got all this capability. So whatever military operation we would dare launch against them, the first thing is Biden would need to go to the Congress and get the Congress to authorize use of military force against Iran, and or go to the United Nations. Now, if they go to the United Nations, they're not going to get that.
Yeah.
Because there's another side to this story, that the United States and Israel and the Brits, to a lesser extent, have been carrying out terrorist attacks inside Iran over the last 15 years, using a variety of groups, like the Baluchis, the Baluchistan, they're on the border of Pakistan where Iran bombed the other day. I know from a friend who had firsthand experience dealing with them. My friend was in a top secret U.S. military intelligence unit that was involved with the planning and execution of the attempted rescue of U.S. hostages in Iran back in 1980. And one of the ways that they were getting intelligence, and it was through a rug merchant in Bethesda, Maryland. Mm-hmm. And this rug merchant had his relatives back in Baluchistan. And they literally were passing messages that were rolled up in the carpets that were, coming in. So you've got that history there. You've had in between 2010, 2012, you had 5 Iranian nuclear scientists assassinated, murdered on the streets. So, Iran's been putting up with this terrorist attack. And then you had the United States kill Soleimani 3-4 years ago. You've had other attacks by Israel. So Iran's fighting back. And now what Iran can do is it has not gone full bore yet in attacking U.S. military bases that exist at Al-Tanf in western or eastern Syria, and Deir al-Zor, which is up north, northern Iraq, or far eastern part of Syria along the border at Kurdish territory. And so they've hit those places, but they can really hit them, wipe them out, and kill lots of U.S. troops. So this, would not be not only a clean operation, but it has the potential to spread, because now Russia's agreed to sign a strategic defense arrangement with with Iran. So, and we've already had Russia and China carrying out joint military exercises with the Iranians over the last 4 years. So these people like Lindsey Graham and others, General Jack Keane, that keep calling for attacking Iran, they haven't, you got to sit down and count the cost. Can we do it? At what cost? And what's the ultimate outcome? What are we looking to accomplish? What's the goal? I maintain that one of the best policies that could be implemented against Iran, if our goal is to really weaken the mullahs, the United States should start a love campaign towards Iran. We love the Iranian people. You guys are not our enemies. Hey, live in peace. Well, all of a sudden, what do the mullahs do? As long as they got the great Satan to blame on it, they can blame the great Satan and the attack of the Americans as for all the problems. The reason you don't have civil liberties here in Iran is because of those damn Americans. When you always have an external enemy that you can blame on your domestic problems on, makes it easy. Take away that external enemy, all of a sudden you're now the one that has to blame.
You empty the narrative, right?
Yeah, and I think that there's enough unrest in Iran of people that are tired of being shackled with this, what many view as an extreme version of Islam. That as long as they don't have that external enemy to blame anymore, the unrest inside would come to a head. But we're not going to do that. We prefer the death and destruction of civilians. So that's I think that's going to go on. And so this really has the risk of spinning out of control.
Yeah.
I would say it already is spinned out of control.
Well, you would, nobody be laughing at you if you said that. It's a reasonable conclusion.
Mr. Johnson, you more or less answered what I will. You gave the answer for my question, but I would try to reformulate it to take what I would like to say. More and more people, I can see more and more people have this point of view, your point of view, that the weapon solution, the military solution is not taking anyone to anywhere and making more problems than solving them. There is a lot of people making a lot of money, and the problems of the people are still there, and all that stuff. What I would like to know is how much people in the United States are starting to see it, and if they have any, because the elections are in the next door, right? So there is anyone there running for president that can carry on changing on this way?
Well, Donald Trump's the one who's been the most vocal about not getting involved in foreign wars. And he's up against Nikki Haley, who she can't wait to start a foreign war. She's She's really part of, let's call her the extension of the neocon class. She's the type that Lindsey Graham or the late John McCain would favor. But the reality is, I think the vast majority of the American people no longer have a stomach for being involved with eternal wars. I mean, we're going on 20 years now, over 20 years of fighting this war on terror. And, you know, if you keep fighting it after 22 years, you must be doing something wrong. You know, it's not like the terrorists were this massive billion man and woman army of ninja warriors carrying out attacks right and left. It's not that at all. So I think the appetite for backing that kind of candidate is waning. It's going to be interesting today. You know, the primary is going on in New Hampshire, and it's an open primary, which means if you're a registered Democrat, you can change your registration to be a Republican. You can go vote as a Republican. And I think there's going to be a lot of Democrats who are going to vote for Nikki Haley just in hopes of trying to embarrass Donald Trump. I'll be curious to see what Trump's total votes are, because you want to compare it to what he got in 2016 and then what he got in 2020. So if it's higher or lower compared to that, but Trump's going to be the nominee. He will be the Republican nominee. And then it's going to be up to the Democrats to figure out what they're going to do. Biden continues to insist that he's running, but his popularity is fading with each passing day. And the policy choices they're making with respect to Israel, Ukraine, Iran are, not helping him. And then you're going to have others like RFK Jr., who reportedly is going to run as a third party candidate. You've got a Libertarian Party candidate. You got Marianne Williamson, she's running. And then you've got a group that's not well known, it's called No Labels. What's funny, they have no sense of humor, because they said they're tired of labels. They don't want a conservative, liberal. They're tired of labels. So they create their own label, No Labels. It's like, yeah, guys, no labels, but you got a label, okay? So just enough of this whole, well, we don't want to have a label, but okay, that's you. They claim that they've got some mystery candidate. This is they're treating the American voters like that old TV show, The Dating Game. Yeah. The American voters on one side of the screen, and you're asking, you can't see who,
In the next block, we'll know who is there for president.
That's exactly what they're going to do, Davidson, man. I mean, it's hysterical. And I know one of the people that's involved with the planning of this, and he's a nice old guy, but good Lord, he's out of touch with reality. Because they think they're going to trot somebody out the end of March, and here's our magic candidate who's going to turn the world around. I don't care if they trot out Jesus Christ. At least that would be their only hope. Jesus would have to work some miracles to get the ground game going. To line up voter registration and get some people on working the phones. There's just. There's a lot of infrastructure behind this, so it's just we're in a mess politically
of multiplying the votes. So maybe
like the old loaves and fishes trick
will not help this time.
Yeah.
Mr. Johnson, may I ask 2 more minutes just for wrap up perfectly this? So.
Okay.
These 2 questions very quickly. So the first one is that I can see all these movements of the United States naval going back from the Israel area of the map, and then you see the money stop going to Zelensky, and arms stop going to Zelensky, and then we see the Venezuela, the muscle stretching over Venezuela and Ecuador. It did not, resonated very strongly.
Right.
What I was just talking to Davidson before we came online is that it sounds a lot to me like it's the peace before the storm. They are just coming back to regroup and focus on one focal point that I imagine it would be Iran, due to the narrative construction that is going on now. And so they are raising Ukraine. Nobody's talking too much about Taiwan anymore. And everything's about Iran. And the second question is, in the middle of all that, where the hell is Lloyd Austin?
Yeah. Hey, listen, missing in action. I mean, this is bizarre. So that we'll start with Austin and then go back to the other.
Okay. You see the images I sent you?
Yeah. They said, they said we're just going to put a uniform on a black guy. The rest of the Americans, all those white guys won't know the difference.
Starring James Earl Jones.
Yeah. I mean, it's when I lived in Honduras, I was doing community development work, lived in the Campo, and one day I walked in on a group of they're all Honduran farmers, and they're all laughing, and I walked in, they got real quiet, so I knew they'd been talking about me, and I go, guys, what's so funny? They go, oh no. I said, no, come on, tell me. They said, promise you won't get mad. I said, I'm not going to get mad. They go, the problem with you gringos, you all look alike. We can't tell, and we can't tell how old you are. All look this, so.
And then you took down their government.
Yeah. So I'll teach you. Make fun of me.
I'm not mad. No.
Yeah, I think, Austin and the lack of curiosity, I think there may be something to the story. When I first heard the people speculating that he had actually been wounded in Kiev and that this was a cover story, I thought, that's silly. It may not be so silly. That may actually be what happened, because they're not putting out any pictures of him in his hospital robe or gown, waving at the camera or anything. He must be in some really serious condition that he's just so completely disappeared. That's what's amazing. But you're right. Iran. They're at least let's call it the military class and the neoconservative class. They want to make Iran the issue, the center of the issue. But Iran so far has not played into their hands. Iran, if Iran launched the equivalent of a Pearl Harbor attack, then the United States said, okay, we're going to go get them. But nobody sat down to really spell out, what does that mean? The United States Army right now only has 473,000 people. If to invade Iran, just assuming that the Chinese and Russians stay out of it and don't do anything, to invade Iran would require an army of about 2 million people. Well, where are you going to get those? And all of this assumes that while we're building up and getting ready to attack Iran, that the Iranians are going to be sitting there doing nothing. It's, this people need to step back and say, okay, we've had enough killing, we've had enough violence. Let's talk. Let's figure out how we can live together without killing each other. That's where we need to be. But I don't think that's going to happen.
What I feel right now is the United States, in the position it is, the country it is, rich and a big market and all stuff. The United States are actually losing a lot of really huge opportunities by not surfing the wave. And they are wasting a lot of resources and manpower and all stuff trying to make the world stay as it were in the 80s, in 90s.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, kind of, stand against the seas, stand against the waves. The waves will pass through you.
Well, it's like, you remember the pictures from Thailand when the tsunamis hit. Mm-hmm. And there was that one guy walking out into the water, and here comes this gigantic wave. That's the United States. That is the United States now, because it started with a special military operation where we incorrectly concluded that we could impose sanctions on Russia, economic sanctions that would weaken Russia, that would force Russia to collapse, and that would consolidate the power of the United States. Just the opposite happened.
Exactly.
Failed to stop Russia, and it gave BRICS the reason for being, the raison d'etre.
Yes.
And as a result of that, now Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa are breaking free of the U.S. Dollar reserve control. And so as they move away from that, then U.S. influence is waning in other areas. The ability of the United States to control events in the Middle East, that's slipped away. When the Chinese came in and brokered a peace agreement between the Saudis and the Iranians,
that was crazy.
That made the war in Yemen go away. So the Yemenis had been a proxy war. The United States was backing Saudi Arabia in that battle as a way to weaken Iran. Mm-hmm. Now that goes away. Same in Sudan. Sudan was an area of sort of another platform for the United States from an intelligence standpoint.
Sure. And now West Africa.
Mm-hmm.
West Africa.
Both
West Africa, yes.
Yeah, well, it's both East and West Africa where the influence is slipping. So the United States' ability to control events in the world has really hit a major pothole, and I don't think we're not going to recover from it. We're really witnessing the end. I call it the end of the colonial era, the colonial empire.
Yes.
So if you go back, we go back 600 years to the middle the middle of the 15th century. Mm-hmm. That's when Vasco da Gama and Christopher Columbus and all these others set off, and they started conquering the world, and the Europe grew as empires. Started with the Spanish and the Portuguese and the Italians, and then the Germans and the Brits and the French, and then late entry into this was America. But we ended up controlling parts of the world and claiming parts of the world as our own. Well, the unraveling of that started at the end of World War II, but the controlling hegemon since then had been the United States, sitting on top of the world, basically causing most of the mayhem. We accuse Russia of being this imperial power, and I always ask people, give me the list of the colonies that Russia has in Central and South America. How about in Africa? No, none. Asia? None? Whereas you want to make the list of colonies for, that still England has, and the United States, de facto colonies, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, Guam, and then we treat the rest of the Caribbean as if it's our own, it's our own special backyard. We control it. So that's all coming to an end now. That the era of this international rules-based order that the U.S. likes to talk about, where we get to set the rules, it's the old golden rule. We got the gold, we make the rules. That's coming to an end, and so into this vacuum is stepping Russia and China and Brazil and India and South Africa and other countries and Iran. So it's the whole social order is going to be upturned, and when that happens, there's the potential outbreak of war.
Yes, exactly. the cycles of empire falling. Yeah. Mr. Johnson, Larry, thank you very much. I think we wrapped up the video perfectly. I think we answered all the questions that we had in the chat, especially in this end. I would like to ask you if you want to have any final statements, and if you want to talk one or two words about Gonzalo Lira. I don't feel very comfortable to talk about the subject. Just to explain a little bit, I started to follow Gonzalo Lira when the Ukraine conflict started. And through him and through his channels, I came to know all of our guests that are coming today to our channel, and also his channel was the channel that gave me the idea and the impulse to create the channel and invite Davison, and we start planning all this together. So I think I would, since you were our first guest and I've been willing to do some kind of thing for him in his memory, I would like to know if you want to say any word or two, and then we can finish this.
Yeah, it was, as I wrote at the time when we learned of his death, it was shocking but not surprising because of the conditions in which he was being held. I was going back over so he contacted me the night of July 30th, or early in the morning on July 30th. He'd been out of prison for a bit. He was planning his escape. He sent me a message, tried to hook up a Zoom call, tried to connect via Skype, and I guess I'd gone to bed or my phone was off. I didn't find out about it until about 2 or 3. I woke up and saw it and tried to get back in touch with him. But I guess now he must have already been on his motorcycle headed to the border. So he was beaten, he was extorted, he was tortured, and for nothing, for having an opinion, and for being entertaining. Some found him irritating, but he was mischievous. But an American he was born in America, but also had Chilean citizenship, and was abandoned by both of those countries. Neither the United States nor Chile did a damn thing to ensure his safety and to warn the Ukrainians not to hurt him. And so he paid for it with his life. I think there had been some who had made some unfortunate comments and references to him that sometimes some even accused him of being an agent of Ukrainian intelligence. And, Gonzalo was there just to be with his children and his, de facto wife. And that's why he stayed in Ukraine, not to carry out some intelligence mission, just that the wife, the mother of his kids, didn't want to leave Ukraine. And it ended up costing him his life. And, it's a real loss, and he's sorely missed. But the good news is he's inspired people like you to sort of pick up the challenge and carry on with roundtables.
Exactly, and that's to the future here. It really inspired me. That's true, and it inspired me even more learning about what happened to him. It was well. Understand what's going on. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Larry, I'm sorry, I'm still not used to it.
Yeah.
And hope to see you very soon again here. It's always a pleasure, fantastic pleasure, and absolutely hilarious to have these conversations with you, sir.
Well, I appreciate that. They say, muito obrigado.
De nada, obrigado. Obrigado,
Hasta
senhor.
la próxima.
Okay. Ciao, guys.
Até logo.
I'm going to be posting content either on this channel or the Roundtable channel every day so that you know that I'm still around. Okay? Okay. Take it easy.
Tell me what you think. Understand what's going on.